This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your Captain Charlie, the Professor S, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hello, Mozz. Welcome. Oh, my friend, as we sail the high seas of streaming content, today we have a special treat from the good folks at Amazon Prime. That's right. Invincible, Season 1, Episode 1. It's about time when Mark Grayson finally inherits powers from his superhero father. It's a dream come true. But there's more to being a hero than just choosing a name and a costume. Of course, our directors this week are Robert Valley and Jeff Allen. Robert Kirkman gets that created by credit, along with Robert Kirkman, and Robert Kirkman, who did the screenplay and the written by. Ryan Otley is a co-creator. Ryan Otley is also a writer. And Corey Walker gets a co-creator credit on this one, too. Oh, boy, this is a fun... So this is one of the things I love about this show, is it really has this... Justice League vibe to it, like Justice League Universal, like the DCAU kind of vibe, where it's definitely, and it matches the comic book aesthetic that it's based on. Very much. If you ever see the Invincible comics, they look like, like some early 90s X-Men, Spider-Man kind of look, where it's very colorful and very much of the line that you expect from, a Marvel or a DC book before they got dark. And I like that because it does juxtapose that as time goes on.
I thought the thing that stood out to me, it reminded me a lot of Samurai Jack in its execution of its fight scenes, how cinematic they were, how well thought out the shots were, and how subtle and effective a lot of the techniques they used were. And it reminded me a lot of the action sequences in Samurai Jack, and that is high praise.
Oh, yes. Samurai Jack is known for its fight sequences. Among many other things, it's a great show. One of the things I love about this is how much... So I've never read Invincible. I don't think you've ever read Invincible. I think we're both coming into this very blank.
Yeah, but since I finished the series, I've been watching video after video on YouTube on the entire histories of all these characters, and it's a fascinating universe, and I can't wait to see where we go. But yeah, since then I've boned up on a little bit on what the history of these characters is.
Yeah, and what we're going to get with this is going to be interesting because it really is a, and the thing about this is you get blindsided by the end of this. Yes. If you're going in fresh and clean, like a newborn babe, who just said, oh, look, it's a new superhero show from Amazon Prime. What were the last ones? The Tick and the Boys. Which actually, honestly, that's an interesting thing for Amazon Prime because those are their 3 superhero movie shows they've had. And all are really about the deconstruction of the superhero. And to me, I really want an episode where there is sort of an Amazon Primeverse crossover, where you have the Tick versus Omni-Man and Homelander, and he's just like, hey, chum, that's smarts. It's like... That
would be hilarious.
Because that's the Tick's thing, is he's just not invulnerable, and you can shoot lasers at him and punch him, and he's just like, Hey, now. That's hardly a proper way for a superhero to behave.
Bad form.
Yes, which is why I love the Tick, because he is everything that is both beautiful and horrible about classic superpowered beings. But, unfortunately, we're not getting another season of Tick, Amazon Prime. Thanks, Amazon Prime. You had to have your boys instead. So... But who knows? Who knows what the future holds? And hopefully, people are going to go, I like deconstructed superheroes, but maybe less blood, because there's a lot of blood in this.
Yeah, but I mean, there's tons of stuff with less blood. I think there's room for some, not just exploration of blood, but a celebration. Of blood. And to that point, I was not expecting it. I had a little bit of an inkling of something wild is going to happen at the end, because my brother said to me, he goes, "You need to watch this show." I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I saw the last scene on Instagram, and I had to go watch it, and it was even better than I expected. I was like, all right, cool. So I get to watching it. I turn it on, and I'm ready for a superhero show. And the first thing you see is these two security guards having a conversation. And that's John Hamm, by the way, I learned later on, which is why it was so engrossing. But, man, the performances in these two characters' conversation was so phenomenal. I completely forgot anything else that was going on. All I remember thinking was, man, I hope this guy and his son patch it up. I was really so invested in that story. I had no idea what else was going on. All of a sudden, there's an explosion. And I'm like, oh, I'm watching a superhero show. And then the twins show up, but to the strength of the writing, the strength of the performances, and the courage to take, a good 2, 3, 5 minutes to let us into this little conversation, knowing you're putting on a superhero show, but to have the confidence to do that. You told me a lot about what to expect from this show, and as the episode kept going, I was more and more surprised by, I didn't think they would go there. And it was not just in the shock factor, but in the subtleties of what they were doing, like the subtle gestures people had with each other. The way they told the story itself is very nuanced and very clever, and I'm super excited. But then when you get to the end, I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, and and again, that's the real selling point of this, because, and for the emotional arc of it, it really is about the human stories.
Yeah.
On every level, every story we get into, it's about those human stories, which is, if you will, the ultimate deconstruction of comic book stories. It is, generally speaking, what I like to call the anti-apotheosis story. The apotheosis story is the idea of the god, of man becoming a god. And comic books are anti-apotheosis in the idea they are about gods dealing with the stories of mortals. That when the god comes down from the mountain and suddenly realizes that this whole humanity thing, it's way harder when you get up close. Those moments in those little things, those little interactions that can break your heart, which is, what they, and again, to tie it back into the other things we think, like the boys, that is the weakness. That's their weakness, is they have emotions and they have heart. And these moments when you're dealing with those relationships, those human relationships, no matter how powerful you are, that human quality, it infects you. It's pervasive. It's
funny you say that relative to what happens to our robot friend towards the latter end of the season.
Oh, yeah. Well,
humanness affects him.
Well, yeah, and that is, I don't want to spoil, because man,
right, but man, that's a really interesting point that they revisit in that place.
I know. Yeah. Well, they revisit all of it. Everybody is going through stuff, and and along those same lines, when they give every member of the Guardian of the Globe, well, not every member, I don't think, but they give the Martian Manhunter guy a moment. They give the Wonder Woman a moment. They give the Flash a moment, who's the Red Rush.
Right. And the Russian Batman guy.
You give the Batman guy. Well, his moment was being Batman, so it's not that much of a moment, but you really get that idea of, oh wow. But honestly, the whole Martian Manhunter story part, and it's like, oh, that kills you because you're like, oh, we're never going to see that little girl again, are we? Like this weird little homeless girl that he has befriended. F that,
Yeah.
F that forever, and that is where it gets so gut-wrenching what happens. But before that, let's get into Ward is disappointed in the Beaver. Because I think that, that's the thing about Omni-Man, who is a Viltrumite from a hyper-evolved world of superhuman beings who go out to teach all the lesser beings about how awesome it is to be a Viltrumite and to protect these poor, silly worlds. And, it's interesting because it presents itself in this very noble way. But if anyone had read John Byrne's Superman and what, Jor-El and Laurel, I think is what her name is, Superman's mom, had intended for Clark when he got here, it's not dissimilar.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't know that yet, so I don't want to get too much into it. But definitely, here's the thing. There's a lot of great stories that have been told in comic books over the years. And any good comic book from the modern age is always calling back to great stories that were written before it. Like any good jazz performer, you take that riff and then you expand on it and you expand on it and you go deeper, you slow it down, you speed it up, just like music. That's, why music is always the prime storytelling device, because how we experience things is a set of sounds and a rhythm, and that's how we tell our stories. But anyway, getting back to the story. So the idea is that our hero, and let me remember what his name is.
Mark
Grayson. Mark Grayson, played by the great Stephen Ewan. Sandra Oh is playing Debbie Grayson. And J.K. Simmons is Nolan Grayson, our Superman pastiche. And all I'm thinking about when I'm watching this is, remember when J.K. Simmons was playing Gordon, and he goes into the gym, and they got all the shots of him in the gym, and then he's wearing a trench coat the whole time. I was like, dang, if they ever do a live action of this series, we can get J.K. Simmons as Nolan Grayson. That'll be great.
That would be great.
Would be great.
Definitely had the body for it, man. He got really big for that role.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had something else planned for him. Or whether just he said, now I've got a DC budget. Hey, I want to get fit. Hire me a guy. And
it could be that. It could be that. It could be one of these things where Snyder thought he was going to have, Snyder thought he was going to get to make every movie that DC made forever. And it's like, first off, you're the director. You're not a producer. That's the thing. Feige has never directed anything. Feige is a producer, and when you're a producer, you get to do that big, let's do this and that and the others, because you're piecing all the pieces together. Snyder was like, I want to piece all these pieces together, but I also want to handle everything. And it's like,
Yeah, I mean, he was auditioning for that position. It wasn't solidified yet. There wasn't someone at the helm. And he said, hey, let me show you what I can do, and I think I've got a plan, and once I do this, you're going to like my plan.
Yeah,
I like that.
But they didn't. They didn't.
Right.
I mean, the truth is that the person that actually they wanted was Nolan. And I think that's the thing. I think that if we had ever gotten a Nolan verse, I think that would have been interesting. Yeah. I think Nolan could have done it. I know Nolan didn't really want to do a Superman or a Wonder Woman, but I think as a executive producer and an overarching DCEU, that might have actually been pretty good.
You know what I think would be a good fit? Especially considering the darker tone that the DC movies have taken, at least the ones that they've had success with, right? Man of Steel had a measure of darkness that was interesting. Obviously, the Joker and the new Batman movie seems to be playing in that area as well. But if Quentin Tarantino were to lend his flair for color and violence and broad strokes, to the DC universe, I think that would be a great person that can string together a world that would be very comic booky and satisfies.
Oh, I think he would be good. I don't like his take on Superman generally, but aside from that, I can work with it. And for what it's worth, he actually is very much a producer. He actually prefers to produce than to actually direct the stuff himself. So I could see that. I mean, people always throw out that Tarantino line as a joke, but it's kind of like Donald Trump. You throw the joke out enough, eventually it becomes real. And I could deal with Tarantino as a producer much more than I could deal with Donald Trump as a president. So, but all that said, let's get back to the show. Mark eventually gets his superpowers, and he gets it when he's at his night job at the burger joint, and he throws the trash into the thing, and it just keeps on going up. And it is an interesting thing that plays out with him and his father, because there is at once this real joy that we see in his father's eyes, but then also
I don't think you see it immediately.
This coming darkness.
I think when he first tells him, I think there's immediately like this panic, I think, that comes over his face. That's
really?
What it felt like. Yeah, and then she has to kick him, and then he's like, oh, that's great. And then he says, yeah, we'll make some time tomorrow. Make time, 8 a.m., we'll go practice. And then he puts the face on and does the dad thing. But initially, it catches him off guard, and I saw it like, it felt like, it's like, whoa. And then she has to kick him to be like, hey. And he's like, oh, that's so great, Mark.
Well, I think that, because I think before that, there was even this little point there about, how even the latest bloomers on Viltrum would have powers,
But that's before he knows it happens, right? So he's still looking at it as this hypothetical thing in the future, right? And he can still think good thoughts or whatever. But something happens there where he tells him, and then something comes over him in that moment. And he comes back to that, but there is that initial moment where you're like, what is that about? And those are like the subtle little things that I think they do so well in this show. They didn't have to do a lot to get us to feel that, hey, something's not matching up here. Something's, And,
you have to give a moment here, because we talk so much about the voice acting in this, and it is all spot on. It is all perfect. But the animators translate that voice acting well. And, of course, for them, there's not any voice acting when they're animating. They're just doing the pantomime. And so they're telling that story visually first. And I think that is where, that investment has paid off. Where they're going to put that investment in making sure that something really subtle, the glance or the movement, that it is what communicates to people. This is something subtle going on that is subtextual.
Yeah.
And that is really wonderful. I mean, like I said, it is without a doubt a well-made show. I like going to meet the tailor. That was nice. And what's the name? And I like the thing where he says, I know you want something that's iconic, but let me tell you, kid, it's not the name that's iconic. You make the name iconic, It's like, Darkwing is Dark Wings. What is that? That's not iconic, except Darkwing makes it iconic.
Right. And
that's the idea. So,
I love also that he goes, hey, can't blame a guy for trying to offload old merchandise. I thought that was great.
But if you look at it, that actually becomes something of what he does when he has, when he takes off the solar panels.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Nolan just thought that was delightful. Oh, he thinks I'm solar powered. That's cute.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it is.
Also, we should talk about like his relationship with what's the girl's name?
The girl that he likes, or do you mean Eve?
Not Eve.
Not
the
Eve,
girl in
the
his
other
high school.
girl. Amber Bennett, played by Zazie Beetz.
That's an interesting situation. Like, and the subtleties of that are played up really, really interestingly as well. Because like he just does it to help someone, right? He intervenes just to help someone, and she took it like, oh, maybe he likes me, you know.
Yeah.
And then that happens, and he's like, oh, well, she's there. Let me, you know. But I don't think he's ever really. He's only there because it is there. You know, he doesn't really, and then once he initiates that, he feels like obligated to that. And once he meets Eve, there's something there, and he feels it. But like, and that friction is palpable, and you see it. And I think that's another place where it's really, really interesting. But I think that's what's going on with Amber. I think that's more of a forced situation, forced by circumstance, than it is something that he would have initiated on his own.
Well, you know, I mean, in the sense that he's a high school teenage boy,
or even she would have.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, you know, oh, they're in that spot, and they're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
You know, you're not an unattractive male, and you're not an unattractive female. And also, you're a high-status female. And, you know, although you're not a high-status male, you're doing things that are impressing me. You know, you seem like you could have high status in the long term. So that, you know, that's good. I mean, you know, and the high school drama in this is great. I love when he does confront the bully after he gets his powers, and he just lets the bully punch him, you know, because it is just, you know, I can do this all day, and just makes the bully, you know, he doesn't have to beat up the bully. He just has to show the bully that, you know, he's not going to back down, and it really has the effect that it's wanted. And then when the bully comes back later and says, you remember wanted me to give you a number, you know.
It also tells you a lot about him as his evolution as a person. You know, like a teenager in his shoes, just getting his powers, couldn't wait to like wail on this bully to make a point for his ego, for self-aggrandizing, you know. But he lets it be, and he understands the gravity and the weight of his responsibility to not act, and he's cool-headed enough to be like, it doesn't mean anything. Just let this moment pass. Well, exactly. Very, very interesting that someone of his age would be thoughtful enough to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we do got to get to the final scene, because it is such an aspect of this. I mean, you know, and again, this will
they make you fall in love with Omni-Man first. They make you fall in love with him. Like you really, really feel hopeful. You're like, oh man, this guy is like, oh, what a great world these people must live in. There's an Omni-Man. He's awesome. You know, and he's a good father, and he's a good husband, and like he's stoic and about his, you know, but he's not working for Cecil. Like I think we see that in this episode, right? He helps out, but he's got his own, just like Captain America, right? He's not a perfect soldier. He's a good man, right? So they build that up, and you really, really, you know, feel that, and then they drop this on you, and it's like, what is happening? And just like they are in that scene, he's like, he couldn't be. He would never do this. And we're like, I'm sitting there going, no, he would never do this. And someone must be controlling him. And then like that sentence came like 5 seconds after I had that thought. I was like, no, someone's got to be controlling him. And then someone's got to be controlling. I was like, yeah. Oh man, that's a heartbreaking scene. It's like, what? Why, Omni-Man? Why would you do that?
Yeah, but then within that entire idea, it's like, even if someone's controlling him, we have to stop this, you know. And, you know, that's where it gets hard, because that is that moment where you have to make that hard choice. And honestly, on my level, you know, because I'm, you know, when I'm watching it, and again, I don't know the history, I don't know what's happening. Yeah. I'm trying to think, oh man, is he afraid that they're going to come after his son? Because, hey, you know, maybe one Omni-Man was okay, but now if there's going to be a bunch of Omni-Men on this planet, maybe all these homegrown superheroes are going to start to get nervous, you know. And I'm trying to think, what is the point of this? But
you know, my first thought was that he got wind that the Guardians of the Globe had been infiltrated or something, or that they had all turned, that he knew some piece of information that nobody else did, and they needed to go, right? So that's where my mind settled. That's what I wanted to believe, because I was not willing to shatter the illusion of this wonderful superhero Omni-Man, right? So in my head, I just settled there. I was like, okay, there's something on, and then I started suspecting Cecil. I was like, I bet you Cecil knows what's going on, right? Yeah. And then my mind started going to all these places, because like I was like, no, it can't be. So, man, what an effectively delivered moment.
Yeah, it is, and that is where we end it. Unfortunately, I mean, this is such a powerful show. And
do we get the demon at the end of this episode? Because they have the habit of like running credits, and then all of a sudden there's an extra little scene. Do we get the demon showing up at the end of this episode?
No, I don't think so. I don't. I didn't watch it like today, so I did my rewatches, but I did it like a couple days ago.
Gotcha. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I don't think we get the demon until next episode. I think because next episode is where it all starts to come out, and next episode is where everybody knows something's happening, but no one knows what is happening yet. And that is the fun of the story. All right, Mozz. I certainly hope you've enjoyed listening to me. But not everyone has. Do you know why, Phil? Do you know why, Mozz? Because they're using substandard headphones. These people need to go to tweakedaudio.com right now. Use the coupon code Southgate at checkout. Get some high-quality headphones at a discount. It'll be great for them. They'll enjoy it. They can then go to huntingkiller.com, use that same coupon code Southgate, and get a discount on having, basically, it's like, you know those murder podcasts everyone's doing right now? Well, what if you, like, just got to be in that podcast, and then someone just sent you all the clues, and you had to make your own podcast? Well, there you go. Make your own podcast with Michelle Gray. Help her solve a cold case. Use coupon code Southgate. If that interests you, even if it doesn't, go down to our show notes, click on the Amazon link, go to Amazon, buy anything you want. I don't care, because honestly, it helps the show if you use our link, and, you know, you can buy whatever you want, and it's fine by me. But while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book written by the Southgate Media Group community. We wrote a book about why we podcast, and we are a bunch of crazy people who like to podcast. And if you like podcasting, you might want to know what makes podcasters tick. It's a good book for that. It's both available in digital download and in hard copy for When Society Falls. All right, Mozz, if anyone does any of that and they'd like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way where Mozz and Poz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet Legends of Tomorrow, Sunday nights at 8 on the WB at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE. Yes, SCR. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you scurvy dogs. You have wandered on our ship and you have sailed with us these many days, these many hours, these many minutes. And you have come to the end of our trip. We'll disembark here now and not make you walk the plank, but come back next week when we once again sail full stream ahead. Arr.